Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying the same old regrets? Maybe it's a careless word you said years ago, or a missed chance, or something darker in action you wish you could erase. The world is silent, but inside, your mind turns into a torture chamber. The walls close in. Every memory becomes a judge, every feeling a sentence. And worst of all, the torment doesn't seem to come from anyone else. It's coming from within you. What if I told you that this bad conscience, that gnawing voice, the relentless inner critic might not be as natural, pure, or even as moral as you've always believed? What if beneath its surface lies a shocking history of violence, power, and social control, one that has shaped the way you see yourself, judge yourself, and punish yourself, even today? Welcome to MindMirror. In this journey, we'll follow Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most misunderstood thinkers of all time, into the hidden origins of your bad conscience. We'll expose the surprising truth behind your guilt, your self-torment, and your seemingly inescapable shame. But more importantly, you'll discover practical, eye-opening tools for understanding and liberating yourself from this invisible prison. This isn't just philosophy for philosophy's sake. By the end of this video, you'll have a new lens for viewing your own suffering and the power to transform it. Let's begin. Let's start with a simple but uncomfortable question. Where does your sense of bad conscience, that persistent feeling of guilt, regret, or self-accusation actually come from? Most of us grow up believing that this voice is simply part of being human. Maybe it's a gift from our parents, our culture, or even God, a kind of built-in moral compass to keep us on the right path. But Nietzsche tells a very different and much more unsettling story. He argues that bad conscience is not something we are born with. It is not the gentle voice of reason or divinity inside us. In fact, he says, it's an artificial construction, a product of history, society, and even violence. What does that mean? Imagine for a moment. You are a member of a wild, nomadic tribe thousands of years ago. You live by your instincts. If you want something, you take it. If you're angry, you lash out. Your desires and your actions flow freely, with little internal resistance. But then everything changes. The tribe settles. Civilization begins. Laws appear. Suddenly, not every impulse can be acted upon. The powerful forces inside you, your aggression, your desire, your wildness, have nowhere to go. Nietzsche calls this the internalization of instincts. All the energy that once went outward, expressed openly, now turns inward. Instead of attacking others, you attack yourself. The bad conscience is born. So, what does this mean for you? If you've ever wondered why your own mind sometimes feels like an enemy, why you struggle to forgive yourself or let go of self-punishment, Nietzsche's answer is clear. It's not because you are broken. It's because for thousands of years, humanity has been trained, sometimes brutally, to turn natural drives inward, creating the machinery of guilt. Your bad conscience is a historical artifact, not an essential part of who you are. Where in your life do you feel guilty by default? What if those feelings are inherited, not inevitable? But Nietzsche doesn't stop at history. He digs even deeper, exposing the economic logic at the heart of morality. Let's unpack this with a metaphor he uses. Imagine that, deep down, your conscience is like an accountant. Every relationship becomes a transaction, every promise a debt. Every failure to repay, whether money, respect, love, or loyalty, creates a sense of owing. Nietzsche calls this the creditor-debtor relationship. In ancient societies, if you broke a promise or failed to pay a debt, you didn't just owe money, you owed your very self. The punishment for breaking a contract wasn't just material, it was physical, even brutal. Your body could be hurt, marked, or even destroyed to balance the books. Over time, as society softened and physical punishments faded, the accounting moved inward. Now, instead of being whipped in public, you whip yourself in private. The pain becomes psychological. The creditor and debtor both live inside you. Have you ever found yourself keeping a mental scorecard of your mistakes, feeling that you owe someone or yourself an unpayable debt? Do you ever replay old failures as if inflicting pain is a form of payment? That's the legacy of this ancient contract, written not on paper, but on your soul. So what does this mean for you? Next time you catch yourself reliving a past mistake, ask, whom am I trying to repay? Who exactly is the judge in this inner court? You may discover that your guilt is the echo of an old social ritual, not a reflection of your true worth. Whenever you feel the urge to punish yourself, pause. Ask, is this my debt, or am I carrying the weight of ancient rules that no longer serve me? Let's take this further. If your bad conscience is an internalized judge, where did that judge come from? Nietzsche shocks us by saying, the origins of morality are brutal. Ancient societies enforced rules through violence. Punishments were public, severe, often bloody. Morality, at its root, was about power. But as societies civilized, that violence was no longer acceptable in public. Instead, it turned inward. The courtroom moved inside your mind. The same impulses that drove people to punish others now fuel self-punishment. Nietzsche calls this a taming process, but it's a taming at a price. The result? Human beings become more civilized, but also more anxious, divided, and self-tormenting. Here's a story you might recognize. Imagine a child who once could express anger or desire without shame. But as they grow, they're told, sometimes kindly, sometimes harshly, don't be selfish, don't speak up, don't want too much. Over time, the child learns to suppress these feelings. The anger doesn't disappear. It becomes self-doubt. The desire turns to shame. Sound familiar? Nietzsche's insight is that civilization's progress comes at the cost of inner freedom. We exchange outer peace for inner conflict. The more peaceful the outside world becomes, the more warlike the inside often feels. Why does this matter to your life right now? Because if you're stuck in patterns of self-attack, anxiety, or shame, you are not failing as a person. You are, in a sense, living out the legacy of a civilization that teaches you to police yourself, often harshly. Instead of endlessly punishing yourself for being not good enough, start to ask, who taught me to judge myself this way? Who benefits when I'm trapped in shame? Sometimes, simply questioning the origins of your inner critic loosens its grip. Let's pause for a moment and look at what we've uncovered. Your bad conscience is not a mystical voice of truth, but a historical invention shaped by social control, old debts, and the taming of instinct. You inherited this machinery, but you are not condemned to live by it. So, what's the next step? Nietzsche noticed a strange paradox. The worse we feel about ourselves, the more virtuous we're told we are. Have you ever noticed how, in many cultures, self-denial, self-sacrifice, even self-hatred are praised as signs of goodness? This is the ascetic ideal. Simply put, the more you punish yourself, the more holy you seem. Nietzsche saw this as a dangerous trick. When people can't find meaning or power in the world, they turn inward. They turn suffering into a virtue. They glorify pain. Look how much I suffer, I must be pure. Think about the modern echoes. The person who never takes time for themselves, wearing burnout as a badge of honor. The friend who can't accept praise, always reminding you of their flaws. Or maybe, in quiet moments, you see it in yourself, the need to atone endlessly, to feel unworthy. But here's the trap. When suffering becomes your identity, you close yourself off from joy, growth, and real change. You become attached to your wounds. So, what does this mean for you? If you feel drawn to self-sacrifice, or if you secretly take pride in your suffering, ask, is this truly making me stronger, or is it keeping me stuck? What would happen if I let go of the need to prove my worth through pain? Write down one way you punish yourself, maybe through harsh self-talk, denying yourself pleasure, or refusing to celebrate small wins. Then, challenge that habit. For one day, allow yourself kindness instead. Notice how uncomfortable and liberating that feels. After uncovering the origins of bad conscience, Nietzsche does not leave us in despair. Instead, he points toward a new path, self-understanding, not endless self-punishment. To break free from the torture chamber within, you need to see your bad conscience for what it is: a tool, a product of history, a set of habits, not a sacred truth. Nietzsche invites you to question, to observe, to become the detective of your own mind. Instead of obeying the inner judge, ask, who is speaking here, my real self, or an inherited voice? What purpose does this guilt serve in my life? Is it actually helping me, or just keeping me stuck? Can I honor my past, learn from my mistakes, and still give myself permission to change? Next time you feel the sting of bad conscience, pause. Write down the specific thought. I'm not good enough. I always fail. I'm unworthy. Then, write out where that thought might have come from: parents, culture, religion, past experiences. See if you can trace it, like Nietzsche did, back to its origins. You may be surprised at how much of your pain is borrowed, inherited, or taught, not chosen. Why is this liberating? Because once you see the machinery, you can step outside it. You can become the author of your own values, rather than the prisoner of old debts. Real growth begins not with more self-punishment, but with radical honesty and self-understanding. Let's bring all of this together with a story. Imagine you are standing in a grand, echoing hall, a courtroom of your own mind. On one side is a judge, stern and unyielding. On the other, you, the accused, trembling with regret. The judge thunders, "You failed. You lied. You disappointed others. The debt can never be repaid." But now, picture yourself walking up to the judge's bench, looking them in the eye and asking, "Where did you learn to speak to me this way? Who gave you this script?" Suddenly, the judge falters. The gavel drops. You realize the judge is just an echo, repeating the voices of the past. The power was never theirs. It was yours all along. So, what have we really uncovered here? Your struggle with bad conscience, your guilt, your inner torment, Your shame does not make you weak or broken. It means you're human. But the roots of your suffering are older, deeper, and more artificial than you've been told. Nietzsche challenges you to become conscious of this inheritance. He invites you to look beyond simple labels of good and evil, guilt and virtue, and to question the history written in your own heart. In a world obsessed with self-improvement and endless atonement, what would it look like to live, for even one day, without the burden of old debts? What if your greatest act of strength is not to punish yourself harder, but to see yourself more clearly? There is immense courage in asking, whose rules am I living by? What would it mean to create my own? As Nietzsche writes, man would rather will nothingness than not will at all. But you can choose a different path. You can transform guilt into knowledge, shame into compassion, and punishment into purposeful action. Let's recap what we've learned together. Your bad conscience is not natural, but built forged by centuries of social control and the internalization of instinct. Guilt functions as a debt, an ancient social contract that lives on in your mind as a cycle of repayment and self-punishment. The origins of morality are violent and power-driven, but you have the power to step outside that legacy. The ascetic ideal glorifying suffering can become a trap, keeping you stuck in cycles of pain instead of growth. Real freedom begins with self-understanding, not more self-judgment. By tracing your pain to its roots, you can begin to reclaim your story. Whenever you feel guilt, shame, or self-accusation rising up, pause. Ask, is this feeling really mine, or is it an echo? Trace its history. Challenge its script. Give yourself permission to write a new chapter, because you deserve more than a life lived inside a torture chamber of inherited debts. You deserve freedom, the freedom to learn, to grow, to forgive, and to become. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep living by the rules of the inner judge, or will you step out of the courtroom and reclaim your own power? If this video sparked something in you, if you saw yourself in these words, or if you feel called to challenge your own bad conscience, let us know in the comments. What old debt or inherited script are you ready to let go of? What will you do differently, starting today? Don't forget to subscribe to MindMirror for more journeys into the depths of your mind, and to ring the bell so you never miss a new video. Next time, we'll explore the power and danger of your own hidden desires. Until then, remember, you are not your shame. You are not your debts. You are the author of your own story. The ideas explored in this video are for philosophical and psychological exploration and are not intended as professional advice. Viewers are encouraged to engage in their own critical thinking and further research, and to consult with qualified professionals for personal concerns.